So around a year ago, I made a video in which I talked about why I will never restart my island in Animal Crossing New Horizons, and I'm proud to say that I have stuck to that promise. And 789 days later, as of the time of writing the script, I'm still playing on Sageport, the island which I created on March the 20th, 2020. Now, I'm not saying here that I've never been tempted to the dark side and to reset my island, or that resetting is bad or anything. You play the game how you want to play it, but I am certainly very attached to this island, and now that Animal Crossing New Horizons is somehow over 2 years old, and now that I've just embarked on the journey of redesigning my island for the 12 millionth time, I thought it would be fun to look over just how much my island has changed over this time period. But before we get into that, if you're new here, my name is Yasmin, and in this corner of the internet, we talk about and play Animal Crossing, The Sims, and other cozy sim games. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, perhaps consider subscribing for more. I hope this video can show you just how much my designing abilities have changed over time, and perhaps it will even inspire you a little bit if you've been feeling in a bit of a slump with the game recently. So without further ado, let's get into it. So like I said, my island was born on March the 20th, 2020 at around 11 AM. I had specifically made sure that I had no uni work to do that day or that week even. The world was obviously in a super weird place at that time, but the one thing that I could focus on was the fact that my game was getting delivered, and I was so freaking excited. I literally went to Tesco and stocked up on snacks so that I wouldn't have to leave my room for that annoying act of eating, which all of us ultimate pro hardcore gamers know is obviously a weakness. I sadly don't have any footage of this early period on my island, only screenshots, because the thought of creating a YouTube channel hadn't even crossed my mind by that point. And honestly, I was also really bad at taking screenshots during that time. I was just absorbed in the game that I didn't even think about doing it. That was a super interesting time with Animal Crossing because these super intricate builds didn't exist. We were literally building the most normcore stuff and we were absolutely loving it. We didn't even have the path, let alone the Colin Crossing paths. It was a wild time. But anyway, my two starter villagers were Hazel and Cody. I kind of hated them both, but I just went with it. My town fruit is oranges, which was cool because I'm pretty sure they were my fruit on one of my Wild World towns back in the day. The villagers I then recruited over that first week were Maddie, Stitches, and Marina, who was an autofill. Then I got Leopold at my campsite, who I disliked on a fundamental level, and later Vic also came to my island. Out of these original villagers, I still have Hazel, Maddie, Stitches, and Marina, and I got rid of the other ones as soon as I possibly could. At some point in these early days, I also had Matilda and Admiral, then also Bam too. Matilda is still kicking about, but the other two are gone. I won't lie, I have got super lucky with some of the villagers I've had come and go on my island. The other main ones I remember having were Raymond, Dom, Anchor, Blue Bear, and Sprinkle. I'll talk more about the villagers I currently have later in this video, but during these first months in the game, my island was super basic and literally covered in flowers. During the summer of 2020 was when I discovered Discord, and I had literally joined a group with folks where we would literally go around each other's islands every day to water each other's flowers. And I am proud to say that I bred every single one of the hybrids in this game with the help of those guys. We don't talk anymore, but those were some really fun and nostalgic times to look back on. For now though, let's cut to the point at which I started my channel, so around 6 months after the game came out. I posted my first Animal Crossing video in September of 2020, and I think it was at this point that I really put my mind to decorating my island. The first speed build I posted was a villager neighborhood build. This period of my island didn't have a super distinct theme. I'd say it was kind of a lot of forest core. I really loved and still love today using lots of natural elements like the trees and shrubs and flowers and stuff. One of my earliest Animal Crossing videos was my resident services park build. This has become one of the permanent fixtures on my island ever since, but the look of it has changed a lot. I actually had the idea of making a kind of decorative plaza area right back at the first bunny day. I'll put the picture up here. Again, you can see how simple my building style was. Not gonna lie, I thought that this area was so great when I first built it, like I was super proud of it. But anyway, back during my first speed builds, I'd say my island was a forest core slash farm core, maybe with some towny elements here and there. I was kind of just vibing and doing whatever I wanted. I'll definitely be including some clips taken from my 2020 island tour video. I believe it was around this time that I'd passed 100 subscribers because one of my Christmas decorating videos had got a bit of traction, which was really cool. I was actually super happy with how my map looked back then, and thinking back now, this was probably the closest to having my island completely decorated that I've ever got it. In front of my museum, I had a giant garden displaying one of every type of flower in the game because, as I mentioned, I was so proud that I'd bred every single type. I won't lie, going back and watching this tour video was stupidly nostalgic. I actually have a good few areas still kicking about from this time on my island, including the general shape of my museum area, which I'm still yet to decorate today, and pretty much my entire campsite. I just love these areas so much that they will probably never change. One of my favorite areas on my island from this earlier time was the fountain in front of my Nook's Cranny in my shopping district area. Seeing this definitely made me miss this feature. I planted shrubs which were the colors of Nook's Cranny, which looked amazing when they were in bloom. Moving on in time a little bit, it was at the start of 2021 that I decided to make some massive changes to my island. I actually made a video where I was using this site which lets you plan your island in 3D, which back then was super helpful for me. So if you're struggling with figuring out the layout of your island, I definitely recommend you check it out. The focus of this redesign was definitely majorly on the layout. Before, I had my house on this mini island in the middle of my island, which I thought was really cool at the time, but the flow of my island in general just wasn't really working for me. I think I kept that same kind of design style, which again was pretty much very undefined. It was just a lot of trees and nature-y elements mixed in with some townness, I guess. I worked on a lot of areas during this time of my island, mainly villager homes and the kind of resident services and shopping district sections. But oh boy, was it in September of 2021 that I decided to make the biggest change to my island by adopting the one, the only Colin Crossing core. This style was massive at the time. It was right around the time when Colin released his absolutely iconic autumn paths, and like many of us in the ACNH online community, I was obsessed. Between September and November, I believe I actually made a lot of progress towards quote-unquote completing my island in that style. I also incorporated some farmy elements, particularly after the 2.0 update released. I did a big cottagecore farm area for my main player home, and also a big pumpkin patch and fruit orchard for Kiki. And speaking of Kiki, it was around this time that the final lineup of my villagers was set in place. So the villagers who I have on my island now and who I think will be staying forever are Hazel. I know I said earlier in this video that I didn't like her off of first impressions, but she's massively grown on me. We then still have Maddie, Stitches, Marina and Matilda. Then the newer additions were Kiki, who I paid an ungodly amount for from Nookazon around Halloween time. Then we have Antonio and Roscoe, who I both had at one point or another in my Wild World saves, Molly, and finally Nan. And I found both of those last two villagers through villager hunts, which half of me kind of misses doing, but the other part also totally doesn't, if you get what I mean. So I think the big question now becomes, why did I lose my steam with Colin Crossing Core when for months I was obsessed with it? Well, as we all know, Animal Crossing is a game which follows the actual seasons in real life. I have always liked to just let my game run with it. I know some players like to keep their games set in a certain time period, but that's never just been for me. Although I will do some minor time traveling if I'm filming a video, for example. But anyway, when winter finally rolled around, I was just not really feeling how everything was looking. I of course swapped out the autumn paths for the winter versions, but my island just didn't quite give me that same joy as it did before. And from there, I really did just kind of lose motivation to build, which I won't lie, did kind of also happen the previous winter as well. And so that was pretty much how I rounded out 2021. I did make some changes for winter and Christmas, but when I think about my island in the later half of last year, I definitely think of how it looked in the autumn. So going into 2022 was when I got really indecisive, if I wasn't indecisive enough already. I really cut down on the speed build videos which I was putting out because nothing of note particularly jumped out to me in terms of what I wanted to build. Like, I did a build of Molly's backyard, which still exists, then a SPRINGCORE island entrance, and yeah, I really wanted to dive into SPRINGCORE, but again, I was just over the Colin Crossing paths and I didn't think that SPRINGCORE was gonna be enough of a change. And so that brings me to a video which I put out around a month ago now, where I said that I would no longer be using the Colin Crossing paths. And if you saw my previous video, you'd know that I'm actually changing things up and adopting this kind of dark brick, sort of dark academia-ish aesthetic, which I'm quite excited about. So here's hoping that this is the one. As we round out this video, I really wanted to show you how the two sort of main areas of my island have changed over time, those being my island entrance and my resident services park, because I think it's pretty interesting to see all of these different iterations that they've been through. And it's so interesting in general to see how little areas from every different theme or layout I've tried over the last 2 years have survived in some capacity, while other areas keep evolving around it. As these screenshots are playing, I really wanted to say thank you to everyone who has followed me and the progression of my island over the last 18-ish months since I started my channel, and for all of your support. It has been so amazing and I'm so grateful for it. Who would have thought that we are now nearly 100 videos in? This is absolutely crazy. Definitely look forward to many more builds and so much more progression of my island of Sageport, and of course lots of other types of videos from me, because I have some fun things planned and some bigger projects in the works which I'm excited to share with you. But with that said guys, if you have any other thoughts, questions or suggestions, please feel free to leave them down below, because I'd love to hear from you. Like, have you kept your original island from when you first picked up the game, or have you reset it? Again, I'd love to know. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day and I'll see you again soon.